Good afternoon. Welcome to those who are watching this meeting on live stream and to those who are in the room and in the public gallery. My name is Mike Kennedy. This is the Mid-Sussex District Council Planning Committee. Around the table we have the members of the committee, the councillors from Mid-Sussex, and to my right, Steve Ashdown and officers from the council. I'd like to begin the meeting by dealing with the first agenda item, which is in relation to substitutes. We have no substitutes today. The second item is in relation to chairmanship. I'm usually the vice chair of this committee, but we have apologies for absence from Councillor Gary Marsh, who is the chairman, and in Gary's absence, I've taken over the chair, but I would require a vice chair, and I've asked Councillor Dick Sweatman if he would mind taking over. And can I ask for approval for that from members of the committee? Thank you very much indeed. Item 3 on the agenda is to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda, and I've not received any notifications. The fourth item on the agenda is to agree, hopefully by general... Sorry.
Yeah.
Councillor Kenny.
I might mention that, I don't know if it's relevant, but I live in the site of one of the agenda items, the education proposal.
That's item 6.
Yeah. So I live in the area, but I'm not the councillor or anything like that. So I'd let you know.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. So item 4 then is to agree, hopefully by general affirmation, the minutes of the previous meeting that was held on the 10th of October. Can we agree? Thank you. Item 5 is to consider any items that the chairman agrees to take as urgent business, and I have not received any requests, and I have no items therefore for that. Moving on to item 6 on the agenda. This is the application in respect of a site at Berkeley Court Marketplace in Haywards Heath for the conversion of a former education facility to provide 10 flats with roof extensions and other alterations. I think many of us will know this site, particularly those of us that use the side entrance to Haywards Heath Station. Can I ask the officers to give the presentation? I think on this occasion it's Rachel Richardson.
Thank you, Chairman. So firstly, I'd like to refer members to the update sheet and which makes reference to amended elevations to be listed amongst the approved drawings which show the elevational detail on the south and western elevations changing render to brickwork. Also to para 2.1, which refers to the council having a 5-year housing land supply when actually it is 4 years, which is compliant with the National Planning Policy Framework. And I have also received a further letter from the property manager of Sunning Hill Properties, who own Hayworth House to the north of the site, and they are stating that they are the owners, that the owners, Berkeley Court, have no right of access across the land adjoining the site to the north and cannot therefore access the proposed cycle store. So the first slide is before you, and it is describing the address and the proposed development, which, as you've heard, is the Central Education Limited Berkeley Court, Marketplace, Haywards Heath, and the proposal is to convert and redevelop the former educational facility to residential to provide 10 flats, which includes roof extensions and alterations. Slide 2 is the proposed site location and block plans. The location plan illustrates the application site boundary as outlined in red. The slide shows the proposed layout of the site, highlighting the position of the proposed rear extensions here and here. and it includes parking to the rear and cycle storage and provision of communal bins. So the parking arrangement is here to the rear and in here, and you've got cycle provision here, and access is to the south of the site. Bin storage is here. The site is located opposite secondary access to the train station on the eastern side of the ring road to the west of Marketplace in Haywards Heath. The telephone exchange adjoins the rear of the site to the west. Owen's Garage adjoins the site to the south, and Hayworth House adjoins the site to the north. The telephone exchange building is probably of 60s, 70s construction, and the buildings flanking the site to the north and south date from the late 19th century to the early 20th century, as does the application site building. The site is generally flat, albeit the site slopes uphill in a southerly direction. The site is located just to the north of the town centre and is within the built-up area boundary as defined in the district plan. Slide 3 is the proposed lower ground floor plan. This slide shows the internal arrangement at basement remains as existing. The basement area comprises a series of small rooms, some of which comprise the original vaults from when the building was occupied by Barclays Bank. Slide 4 is the proposed ground floor plan, and this shows the layout for flats 1, 2 and 3 with the proposed stairwells to the rear. Stairwells being here and here, and the flats here. The layout of the flats have been consistently stacked, and bedrooms are at the rear with living rooms at the front for the purposes of minimising both internal and external noise levels. Slide 6 is the proposed first floor plan. Oh, sorry, I've skipped one actually. So that shows the layout of flats 4, 5 and 6 above 1, 2 and 3. And again, yes, they're consistently stacked as per the lower ground, the ground floor arrangement. So the proposed second floor plan shows the second floor level for flats 7, 8 and 9. Flat 9 is a maisonette and has an upper floor at third floor level. Slide 7 is the third floor plan. The proposed third floor plan shows the upper floor of 9 and flat 10 and the external terrace areas at roof level, which you can see here, here, here and here. Slide 8, existing north elevation. The elevation shows the existing roof configuration, which is hipped at the front and rear with gable features and chimneys. The proposed north elevation shows the same elevation and the proposed roof extensions, and to the rear, including additional windows in the existing building at first and second floor. So these are the additional windows, and the extension is here and above and to the rear. The existing front elevation, and this shows the street scene and marketplace, including the application building. So Berkeley Court is here, Hayworth House is here, and the Owen's Garage is to the southern side here. The eastern front elevation is shown as a larger scale version here. It illustrates the traditional features and detail as well as the chimneys across the entirety of the roof. This slide shows the front elevation as proposed and the changes to the roof profile together with proposed materials at second and third floor levels. These comprise zinc and metal cladding here and here. The existing south elevation is adjacent to Owen's Garage at the higher end of the site. Again, it illustrates the existing roof configuration and additions to the rear. And the post-south elevation, as mentioned on the northern side, you can see the extensions to the roof here and here, and also to the rear and the additional windows. Existing west rear elevation. This slide highlights the traditional features and additions at the rear of the existing building. and the proposed elevation at the rear. And this slide shows the contemporary design of the proposed residential redevelopment and the use of vertical metal cladding to the stairwells here and here, as well as zinc and metal cladded flat roofs at second and third floor height. Brickwork is proposed to match existing at ground floor, here and here, and first floor level as an amendment following the urban designer's request to do so. This was in preference to render. Slide 16 shows the proposed CGI viewed from the northern end of Marketplace. It shows the front and side elevation of the building with the proposed extensions on the roof here and here, and retention of the two chimneys to the northern side, but the chimneys that were centrally positioned have gone. Another CGI of the front elevation viewed from the platform of the train station at Haywards Heath, and it demonstrates the proposed resulting development within the context of the existing surrounding built environment. And you can see here the garage, Owen's Garage, and the building further south here, and the roof profiles of those, and what's beyond. And again, finally, another CGI which shows the development from the south. As I was saying earlier, you can see the roof profiles of existing buildings to the south, and you can see the proposed development and the flat roofed extensions on top of the existing building. And photographs of the site shows views of Berkeley Court from the north and east on Marketplace and existing buildings within the vicinity. And this is the former Lloyd's building here, Owen's Garage here, Hayworth Hotel here, and the telephone exchange building here. Again, some other photos that I've taken showing the front elevation, and this is the view from the stair core of the trains accessing the platforms to the train station opposite the site, and the building to the north. The recommendation A is that Planning Permission be approved, subject to the completion of a satisfactory Section 106 legal agreement to secure infrastructure contributions and the conditions set out in Appendix A. Recommendation B is that the applicants, if they have not submitted a satisfactory signed planning obligation securing the necessary infrastructure payments by the 7th of February 2025, then it will be recommended that permission be refused at the discretion of the Assistant Director for Planning and Sustainable Economy for the following reason, which is that the application fails to comply with policy DP20 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan in respect of the infrastructure contributions required to serve the development. So members will be well aware legislation requires the application to be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material circumstances indicate otherwise. It is considered that the application is in accordance with the development plan, and this is the proper starting point for decision making. However, the Council also must have regard to other material considerations, including the National Planning Policy Framework, in determining this planning application. As set out in your officer's report, the planning issues for consideration are principal, design and impact on the character of the area, highways, residential amenity, sustainability, drainage, biodiversity net gain, infrastructure, housing mix and space standards, and the Ashdown Forest. It is necessary, like with any planning application, to weigh up the planning balance in terms of the issues and the weight attributed to each. The development plan and the NPPF seek to promote an effective use of land in meeting the need for homes through promoting the development of previously developed and underutilised land. Policy DP25 allows for the loss of a community facility where the evidence submitted can satisfactorily demonstrate that the use is no longer viable or that a replacement facility can be provided in the locality. The building is no longer viable for the former educational use and it has been relocated to Skeins Hill within the district. The proposal is supported by the government's requirement to maximise development on sites and promote development on previously developed and underutilised land. As such, in terms of principle, the conversion and redevelopment of the site would result in the delivery of an additional 10 dwellings of an appropriate housing mix within a highly accessible and sustainable location that will positively contribute to the council's housing supply. The site is within the built-up area of Haywards Heath, which is a Settlement 1 category. The site is therefore considered to be a suitable and sustainable location for residential development. The principle of the proposal is acceptable, and this is positive in the planning balance. In terms of character, design and character, the council's conservation officer considers that the application building has the potential to be regarded as a non-designated heritage asset because of its group value. Although it should be noted that the council does not keep an official register of locally listed buildings. That said, the guidance set out by Historic England for NDHAs refers to locally identified buildings identified by plan-making bodies with a degree of heritage significance. Berkeley Court is listed as a cherished place in the Haywards Heath neighbourhood plan and is within an area of townscape character, which places emphasis on the need to pay particular attention to retaining the special character and to demonstrate how proposals support and enhance the character of the area. The Conservation Officer raises concerns over the proposed roof extensions and considers that they will result in a mid to high level of harm to an asset of low to mid level of interest. Conversely, the Council's urban designer raises no objections subject to details to be secured through planning conditions. Your officer supports these comments from the urban designer, given that para 209 of the NPPF states that a balanced judgment should be applied having regard to the scale of any harm or loss of significance of the heritage asset. The other aspects of design in terms of the proposed rear extensions, amenity, including outdoor space and landscaping, and layout are considered to be acceptable and in accordance with design-related policies. On this issue, it is considered that in terms of design and character, the proposal would be neutral in the planning balance. The proposals will allow for retention of this building of historic merit in preference to its demolition or redevelopment in accordance with DP 34. Although the development would only result in the provision of 6 car parking spaces, the site is within a highly sustainable location close to bus stops, the train station and the town centre. The existing access would be utilised. As such, it is considered that the proposal would not cause harm in terms of the level of parking or highway safety. No significant harm would be caused to the amenities of the surrounding residential occupiers as a result of overlooking a loss of light, noise and air quality. In addition, the proposal would result in suitable amenity for future occupiers. This is positive in the planning balance. The proposal will deliver positive social and economic benefits through the delivery of housing, which reflects one of the key objectives of the NPPF, and in the short term the proposal would also deliver a number of construction jobs. The council would also receive a new homes bonus. The proposal would also support the local economy through an increase in residents living within the town centre. This is positive in the planning balance. In terms of infrastructure, the application would provide the following financial contributions. Children's playing space, the play equipment would be £7,505 and kickabout £6,304. Formal sport contribution is £8,595. Community buildings £5,741. Primary education £11,302. Secondary education £12,163. Libraries £3,309 and TAD is £15,962. The details of how these monies will be spent is addressed in your officer's report from paragraph 12.93. This is considered to be positive in the planning balance. There are no objections in relation to drainage and there will be no likely significant effect on the Ashdown Forest Special Protection Area. The application is exempt from the provision of biodiversity net gain because it was made before the 12th of February 2024. This will all have a neutral impact in the planning balance. Overall, the planning balance is considered to fall in favour of approving the planning application. The application proposal is thereby considered to comply with all relevant policies as set out in your officer's committee report. And that brings my presentation to an end, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Rachel. We have one speaker, Mr. Paul Joyce, as I understand it. I thought there are two. Thank you very much indeed. I was under the impression there was just one, but please go ahead. Mr. Joyce first. If you could take a seat in the corner there by the speaker. Microphone. You'll have 2 minutes to speak, and you'll be able to see on the screen a digital countdown on the screen at the back of the room or in front of the room. There'll be a digital 2 minutes countdown, and I'll give you a warning after 1 minute. And at the end, you must finish within one sentence. Please go ahead, Mr. Joyce.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, speaking in support of the Berkeley Court development, this proposal represents the optimal use of redundant brownfield land on an urban site. The provision of windfall housing here aligns with the council's strategy to direct housing to the most sustainable sites in the district. Berkeley Court is one of the district's most sustainable locations. Opposite the railway station, close to town shops, facilities and employment opportunities, the site is at the very top of the settlement hierarchy. Maximising opportunities in urban locations avoids the need to build outwards from towns over green spaces and the countryside. The loss of the former community facility, a specialist school for pupils with behavioural issues, has been fully justified. Central Education Limited have relocated to a more suitable premises in Skanes Hill. 10 high-quality flats will be created, each exceeding space standards for their type, most by 15 to 25 square metres. The 2 one-beds, 7 two-beds and a 3-bedroom flat is a positive housing mix that directly addresses the high need for smaller dwelling types. This need is driven by suitable housing for elderly people downsizing and young couples getting on the ladder. These accessible flats are in the right town centre location for these demographics. Design is an interesting, even exciting approach that retains and enhances the notable features of the building. Chimneys, gable frontage, and stone window dressing. Your urban designer supports the design, and their position is upheld by your planning officers. Berkeley Court is not a designated heritage asset. It does have some heritage value, but not of a degree to make the change to its roofline unacceptable. Utilisation of brownfield land in a very sustainable urban location to provide high-quality housing of a much-needed type should win out in the planning balance. We hope that councillors can agree with their planning officers and grant planning permission. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. I gather Mr. Russell is going to speak now as well?
If you prefer, I can just sit for questions for 2 minutes. That would be more useful.
No, I think the procedure is that you can speak for 2 minutes, and that's it. The questions and discussion will be afterwards.
At your discretion, Chair. Thank you. I think it's important for me to set out the, excuse me, my glasses, getting older. It's important for me to set out some of the considerations within the 2 minutes I have. First, I have a strong sense of place to the area, to Hayward Heath. I was a small boy with a full head of hair, running errands for my dad from Sussex Road, where he had a shop, to the Broadway and so on, getting stationery and such like. So this means a lot to us, to the practice, to me, and also to the developer, who I've known for many years. The second consideration, I think, is when we were involved in the original 2011 change from Bolton Road, where the school was, into Berkeley Court. And at that time, whilst the move was considered permanent, it was permanent insofar as they needed to find another site. It was never an optimal building for them, and they started almost as soon as they moved in.
1 minute left.
And it was to do with disruption. The third consideration for us as designers with experience of seeing the shock of the new is that the quality of this scheme is the thing that will define the building as something that we assimilate into our surroundings and enjoy. If we get the quality right, which is an objective point, and we work with your officers to do that as we do, then I think we'll all enjoy the fact that this has been done properly, whether we enjoy the style of it or not. The quality is the thing that we should be most predisposed towards. And then finally for me, as somebody who's had to get onto a housing ladder and certainly is involved in new residential accommodation across the land. This is ideal for sustainable housing for the next generations and for current generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Russell. Okay, so time to open this for discussion and debate. Can I just ask a couple of preliminary questions first to Rachel? There's mention of an objection on the basis that the development might affect pipework and possible access for future maintenance. It's at paragraph 4.2, relation to sewage, I guess. Is that an issue?
Sorry, I'm just having a look at that paragraph. There aren't any objections in terms of drainage, and so in terms of material planning considerations, that is, it shouldn't have any reflection or bearing on the overall recommendation. And there is a condition also recommended in relation to drainage. So, no.
Okay, thanks. The second point was in relation to this late representation about access on the northern side of the development, the land adjoining the north of the development, access to a cycle store. Is that really relevant?
Well, again, it's not a material planning consideration. Yeah. It's a civil and private matter.
Mm. And it's right, isn't it, that there's been no objection from Haywards Heath Town Council?
That's correct.
Okay. Good. Can I open it up for discussion, debate, observation, comment? Keeping to the point, of course. Councillor de Bell.
Thank you very much indeed. I was looking at everything that Rachel was telling us. It was a heck of a lot there. Well done. And I totally understand the need for housing, and this is in a beautiful position. But I can't help feeling not a bridge too far, but I feel that this is a floor too far. And the second gentleman that spoke about the aesthetics of this, I think that they're very, very important. And what we have here is an opportunity to make something that has been there a long while, something very special in the community. And I don't think this does it. It just, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think it's just shoving as many flats as we possibly can into a disused building. And I think that so much better could be done, in my personal opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor de Bell. Next, Councillor Henwood.
Yeah. First of all, I have a question. I noticed that the Conservation Officer 13.5, which Rachel read out. How would you go about getting a building becoming a non-designated heritage asset? Could you please inform me, because we have a few buildings around the district that could do with that. So perhaps one of the planning officers, Mr. Ashdown, would you know how you go about doing this?
I think in terms of this application and this building, then that's been identified as part of the application process. So in terms of the application process, Conservation Officer has taken the view that it's a non-designated heritage asset. As alluded to, we don't have a list, published list. The way that we've identified them or have identified them and continue at this minute in time is to do it through proposals that come towards us for development on a site. So as part of any application, either planning application or pre-application proposal, if we consider it to be a building worthy of the status of a non-designated heritage asset, then we would do it as part of that process.
So, planning officer, my question is, how do you go about? In the future, there are several buildings which really would benefit from having this official list. My question is, how do you go about getting a building put on this official, non-designated? That's my question. There is no way to do it.
You know, at present, we do not have a published list, but legislation doesn't require us to have one because we can identify it as part of the planning process. So if, for example, an application came forward on one of these buildings,
Okay.
we could consider it as a non-designated heritage asset as part of that application. But it needs to be remembered that a non-designated heritage asset does not have the same protection as a listed building.
Yeah, I thank you very much. But this is noted that this is, and it's a valuable contribution to the townscape, to this particular site. I noticed the planning officer kept talking about traditional features. Well, obviously those chimneys are very traditional features, and they would be lost by that that top story up there. So I'm looking at page 56 on my thing, the conservation officer, talking about the loss of chimneys. It is quite significant. The loss of the chimneys to each of the three properties results in a further loss of roof line interest, and again detracts from the existing character of the building. So I feel that this is very detrimental, the loss of the chimneys, the loss of the roof line, and then the additional extra story that's up there. So as far as that's all I got to say at this moment, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henwood. Councillor Cherry.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Whilst I'm, very much in support of turning, what is now a brownfield site into 10 apartments, I'm not happy with the design, as has already been mentioned by my last two colleagues, because we're effectively turning a very handsome, traditional Edwardian building into a rectangular box. And I totally agree with Councillor de Bell that I think this is a flaw too much, too many. That I think it's very important that if we're going to retain the building, we retain the full character of the building. And I was a bit alarmed to read, I think it's section in 12.35, that is effectively saying that it's better to reduce the character of the building. So you're already admitting that the character of the building is being lost, in my mind, rather than demolishing it altogether. Yeah, well, obviously we don't want a beautiful building like this demolished altogether, but I think we can do a whole lot better with this design, that we can retain the beautiful character of an Edwardian property, but also provide very needed accommodation for people in a brownfield site. But I'm not happy with the current design, and I think we perhaps, we need to think again on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cherry. Councillor Hitchcock.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not unopposed to the conversion of this building into flats. I think it's an ideal location, and it's an opportunity that shouldn't be missed. What I am a little bit disturbed about, as an ex-practicing architect, is the connection between the roof and the second floor. It's a box, and that box does absolutely nothing for the front elevation. In my view, the box should have been on the back wall and 1.5 meters further back, and then the elevation would have stood out, and we would have not seen so much of the top of the roof. Having said that, I think it's quite an innovative design. I quite like the design, but I don't like that intermediate box. But then again, it's not enough for me to say that I won't support it. Thank you.
Councillor Hitchcock, thank you. Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, I'd like to add my voice to the councillors who expressed concern about the design. I do think that the current design really takes away so much value. It's almost as though we're, on the one hand, if it was to be pulled down and built for a new, much larger building with a greater gain of homes, one might sort of even tolerate that. But the issue here is that it's neither fish nor fowl. We're probably ruining something which is quite good at the moment. So my view is that I'd like to see a development that was smaller. We've got some interesting developments in Hayward Heath. There's some on the Broadway where new floors have been added, but they're set back from the front elevation, and they actually look quite nice. You can tell that the extra floor is there, but it's set back and it doesn't destroy the line of the elevation, which is what this does. It turns all the elevations into square boxes, and so I share the concerns about that. I do want to see development, love the idea of the brownfield sites being used, but hesitation about this design.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've been thinking about this. I'm not particularly qualified to speak on the points that have just been made, but I think in terms of DP26, which is character and design, I feel that the planning officers are satisfied. Well, she'll tell me if she obviously is. I think she's ticked the box on it, really. I mean, it utilises what is quite an attractive Edwardian front feature, and which would be lost if you demolished it. So from that point of view, I think I'm happy with it. I agree with my previous two speakers. I don't really think it's quite ideal, but then you hardly look at it. It's one of those buildings that you cycle or drive or walk past, and you don't really look at it. Its front, its west elevation. So I'd just like to move on to a point that concerns me. This is sustainable design and construction. DP 39, and I notice in the sustainability, energy and sustainability statement, which is quite interesting and complete, showing, you know, it's not the end all with regard to sustainability, but it certainly ticks the boxes there. But there's above the second floor extension, there's a roof terrace. So I was hoping that might be a roof terrace for all of the flats, because the flats obviously don't have any balconies, and particularly, they're not attractive as flats from that point of view. And perhaps the officer can tell me whether that is a communal roof terrace. If it's not, it's associated with the two top flats, 9 and 10, and it's their private domain. I don't know. I'd like to think it wasn't. And the reason I'm going on about this is one of the requirements in DP 39 is to use renewable sources of energy. And it seems that the energy is provided by individual air source heat pumps. And it looks like, don't know whether they supply the hot water or not, but there's a huge amount of energy per year, according to this energy report I've got in front of me. And there's no provision for for solar on the roof. So from that point of view, I think that depending on the answer I get, I don't know that it ticks DP 39. So thank you very much, Chairman.
And what was the specific question that you were asking and expecting an answer to, Councillor Brown?
Sorry if it's not clear. The question is, we've got a roof on top of the second floor. So, and it's defined as a roof terrace, i.e. that's the sort of thing I imagine people would sit on, and and it's a sun terrace or something, I don't know, accessible from the top two flats. So I would have thought that was a place where some solar PV or could be applied to do what I do with my home. 50% of my my hot water heating is entirely from solar in the summer, and and then we've got a condition here which is DP39, use renewable source of energy, and I don't see that opportunity being taken. Is that clear enough?
Well, it's a statement rather than a question, I think, isn't it?
Well, the question is, does it meet DP39?
Fine.
Thank you.
Are you able to answer that, Rachel?
Thank you, Chairman. The paragraph and the section on sustainability is in the officer's report at 12.70 onwards, and the conclusion to that is that it does meet the requirements of the relevant policies in terms of sustainability. You're correct in saying that there isn't any provision of solar PVs within the scheme. At paragraph 12.76, it details what the sustainability measures are within the scheme and provision of air source heat pumps, but there are no PVs on the roof.
Thank you, Rachel. Next, Councillor Sweatman, I think, then Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I note the varying comments on the design, and I think that's a bit of an issue here. However, we need to take, or must really take notice of our urban designer that sits upstairs. She has no objections to this on design. Agreed the conservation officer does, so there's a bit of a difference of opinion there. But however, when you look at it in the context of the station, that is not a really grand design, is it? So with this design, it's probably more in keeping with the station area. I think what you also got to bear in mind that the town council have no objection to this application. Also is providing 10 new homes, which is a good addition to our land supply. And of course, we're also getting new homes bonus out of that. So, to be quite honest, I have no objections to this application. Agreed the design could have been better, but we've got to look what's in front of us and take notice of our probably urban designer that has no objections to this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sweatman. Councillor Henry.
Well, I suppose my feeling is we should actually respect the conservation officer because this is a Edwardian building and it should be best conserved. So I would throw my weight behind the conservation officer. And I don't think it's a choice that if we require a better design, the alternative is they knock it down and build from scratch. I don't think that's a choice. I think we as a committee should require an adequate design, something suitable that fits the situation, that fits the town scene, the landscape. That's my feeling very much so. But also, I would like also to add, if it were to go against my evidence, that we put in a condition, and especially as the gentlemen are here, about there's nothing about recycling grey water procedures. Now, I think we've mentioned solar panels, it says air source heat pump, but I think we need also to instill in all these buildings grey water recycling. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Henry, thank you. Councillor Casella.
Yes, in my personal view, I think it's a perfect match of old and new. You're taking an old building, you're preserving some of the old building and still keeping the street scene as such. You're merging in new technology and new development to fit in with it. The urban designer is perfectly happy with the design. And I think it does a job. This is the sort of area within the new rules that they would probably define as greyfield. So it's a site that's already got a building on it that you can now use for something else. And it's a perfect job for it. And in all honesty, I think we've put a bit too much store on keeping some of these old buildings. If that work isn't done, they'll just knock it down and build a very unsightly block of flats and everybody will complain about that. So I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Casella. Would anybody else like to make any observations? Well, we seem to have a fairly diverse view amongst those that have spoken, certainly. Can I ask anyone around the table whether they'd be prepared to propose the
I recommend approval, Chairman.
So you'd propose it. Kind of looking for a seconder? Thank you. Okay, unless anyone else has any comments at this time, we'd go to a vote, I think. I think that's it. We have 11 members here. Is that right? So we have 7 in favour, 3 against and 1 abstention. So the proposal is approved. The next item on our agenda is item 7.
Just wait for Andy to switch over of offices.
Ah.
Yeah. So, sounds like I'm coming now.
Good, let's move to item 7 then, which relates to Ephesus at 24 the Broadway, Haywards Heath. And it relates to a variation of condition 2 relating to planning reference back in 1986 to allow extended opening hours of 9 a.m. to midnight on Sundays to Thursdays and 9 a.m. to 1:45 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. Could I invite Officer Andrew Clark to fill us in on this and present the application?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, so this application relates to a variation of condition related to the opening hours of a hot food takeaway on the Broadway in Haywards Heath, just around the corner from the council offices where we're sat this afternoon. Members will see that the hot food takeaway FSAs operates from these premises on the eastern side of the Broadway. Council offices are just off the plan here. I'm sure members are aware of the Broadway, one of the main commercial areas in Haywards Heath, quite a vibrant late night economy, plenty of food and drink establishments on that area, along with residential properties above. We have premises such as the Star Inn on the corner here, and the parade of commercial premises runs to the north down towards Haywards Heath Station. The history behind this application is of relevance to the determination application. So originally, planning permission was granted in 1986 for the change of use at that point to an A5 takeaway. At that point, opening hours were approved until 11 p.m. Sunday to Thursday and 11:30 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. In 2014, a planning permission of Section 73 application was approved, so in theory a new planning application, which allowed the opening of the hot food takeaway until midnight Sunday to Thursday and 1:45 a.m. Friday and Saturday. This was a temporary permission to last for a period of a year. Therefore, at the same time in 2015, that permission lapsed and the lawful hours of operation returned to the 11 p.m, 11:30 p.m. as set in 1986. It appears that obviously this reversion did not take place, and the premises have been operating outside of their approved hours for some 9 years now. This application seeks to re-establish lawfully the opening of the premises until 12 midnight, Sunday, Thursday, and the 1:45 a.m. Friday and Saturday. Premises are operating roughly these times at the moment. To be clear, that they have been in breach of planning control is not a reason to refuse a planning application. We must determine it solely on the planning merits, as though it's a prospective application. But the evidence over the past 9 years of any harm to amenity is considered a material consideration in the determination of the application. Members will see the comments of environmental health officers and of Sussex Police, who have noted the potential for harm to amenity, but have stopped short of raising objections. In terms of the policy position, DP 26 and DP 29 of the district plan outline how we consider potential harm to amenity, and they set a rather high bar of a significant harm to amenity. Officers of the opinion that, noting the overall character of the Broadway, its late night offering, the enhancement to the business premises, and the evidence of a lack of noticeable harm over the preceding 9 years, that the development does not cause significant harm to amenity, hence the recommendation for approval. There are other late opening places on the premises. This would be the latest opening premises on the Broadway. There's another pizza restaurant open till 1:30 a.m. The Savannah Bar open till 1 a.m. But obviously it serves a need. To attempt to address any potential additional harm, this application, sort of the planning law and the technical how this is determined, is actually Section 73A application, means we can impose additional conditions, and our involved health officers have recommended conditions relating to the opening of doors and windows to the front. Basically, they can't pop open their door maybe in the hot summer months, which may create additional noise, and a restriction on deliveries post 11 o'clock. That includes your sort of Deliveroo and Just Eat sort of drivers who may undertake deliveries and takeaways, but the operators have said they do not use those sort of delivery services after 11 o'clock. Just the one photo, because I think members are all aware of where we are. That is the Broadway there. We have obviously received representations regarding the potential harm to amenity and the congregation of people outside those premises along the Broadway. We do note the concerns, but the application is solely consider the hours in front of us. It doesn't include any other provision, but on the basis of the evidence and supporting the local economy, officers are the content that this is not going to cause significant harm to amenity, and is recommending the application for approval. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I think we have one speaker against this application, and that's Mr. Paul Hunt. Mr. Hunt, would you like to take a seat in the speaker's chair over there? And as with the previous speakers, you'll have 2 minutes to address the committee, and I'll remember to give you a warning at 1 minute.
For 9 of the last 10 years, this business has operated with extending opening times that are unlawful, because the LPA has failed until now to review and enforce the condition on opening times it imposed in April 2014. Over these 10 years, in the early hours of Saturday and Sunday mornings, when the late night bars close, many of those leaving these bars congregate outside the premises, and quite a few are prone to indulge in antisocial behaviour. During these hours, neighbouring residents are disturbed on a regular basis by noise at the front and rear of the premises. Litter, food waste and human waste are frequently scattered along the frontages of neighbouring premises. Now, most residents in this part of the Broadway are prepared to accept that from time to time there will be some noise, nuisance and disturbance, but most businesses treat their neighbours with some respect and seek to minimise these. However, unfortunately, this business has exhibited an unwillingness to pursue such an approach, and the frequent incidents of noise, nuisance and disturbance are excessive and unacceptable to neighbouring residents and business occupiers. Nevertheless, the LPA is recommending that this long-delayed application to extend opening times on a permanent basis be approved. The LPA asserts, but in my view without credible evidence, that any harm caused to neighbours' amenities is neither insignificant nor unacceptable. The council has no record of complaints by neighbouring residents about antisocial behaviour at the front of the premises because it is not empowered or required to police it. The police, who are empowered, do not have the time or resources to attend incidents of what they consider low-level antisocial behaviour at times of peak demand for their services. The business needs to be provided with an incentive to moderate its antisocial behaviour at the front of the premises. The award of a permanent extension will provide a licence to continue to ignore it. Therefore, I suggest this application for a permanent extension should be refused. However, the award of a new temporary 12-month variation to be reviewed on a rolling annual basis should provide an appropriate and continuing incentive to the business to seek to minimise the harms to its neighbours' amenities and be compliant with the relevant provisions of national, district and local policies. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We also have a speaker, Miss Emily Hall, as agent on behalf of and in favour of the application. Again, you have 2 minutes.
I'd like to thank the Chair and fellow members of the committee for allowing me to speak this evening on behalf of the applicant in support of the application. The application seeks to vary the opening hours of the existing hot food takeaway at number 24 the Broadway. The opening hours would be from 9 a.m. to midnight on Sundays to Thursdays and from 9 a.m. to 1:45 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. It is noted that planning permission was previously granted for these exact opening hours, but this was only granted for a period of 12 months. The applicant genuinely believed that the permission was permanent, and so the premises has continued to operate with these opening hours for the past 10 years. As such, this application simply seeks to remove the 12-month restriction and regularise the existing situation. The application site is surrounded by a variety of late-night establishments where the current operation at the site is a complementary use to the local area. The premises would continue to provide hot food takeaway for late-night visitors to Haywards Heath, whilst also serving many shift workers. The late hours of use are clearly suitable given the amount of time that has passed since the premises first began operating. It is noted that there have been no environmental health issues raised over the past 10 years. As such, the hours of operation do not result in noise or disturbance, which would cause harm to the immunity of neighbouring occupiers.
45 seconds.
To further ensure that there would be no potential for disturbance to residents, suitable conditions are proposed to ensure that no external waste disposal takes place after 11 p.m. In addition, all windows and doors would be kept closed up between these nighttime hours, except of course for normal entry and exit into the premises. Finally, no deliveries would be permitted to be made after 11 p.m, which would further protect the immunity of neighbouring occupiers. The regularisation of the current operating times would allow for the existing business to continue to grow, in accordance with the aims of the NPPF and the district plan, which supports sustainable economic growth. It is therefore requested that the case officer's recommendation be upheld by the members of committee and the application be granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, councillors, fellow councillors, anybody wish to make any observations? First of all, I have Councillor Bashar.
Yeah, I would like to ask, I heard it says it's been temporarily for the last 10 years. Now, at that time, 10 years ago, it must have come to this committee, giving the permission for temporarily. Mm-hmm. Now, I can understand what is temporarily and what is coming back to now 10 years later. So how this has been run, with these timetables without our council's knowledge or without the permission. That's one question. Secondly, if they're going to timetable, on the door, it doesn't say the same timetable.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the second question.
The timetable, they're planning for the, extension of the timetable. They want to go, 1:45 the weekend. Mm-hmm. Am I correct? Yes?
Well, as I understand it, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, the permission was granted 9 years ago.
For temporarily?
On a temporary basis for
Correct.
1 year. as we've heard, the applicant felt that that was a permanent grant of permission for those hours. And he's continued to practice it and to follow that through and to operate on that basis. But no one realised, and it wasn't reported or picked up upon, and it's just been allowed to go on without anyone knowing until this was discovered, and he's made a formal application now to formalise that temporary grant, which was made 9 years ago, into a permanent application for those times.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know quite why that's happened. It's not something that
it
is...
must be somewhere something going wrong, I will say.
Possibly,
yes. Can I say still?
It's good. Continue,
Looking at the timetable, I mean, I run businesses the last 20 years in Heath, just the other side of the road, Bolton Road. I had the residents as well with me. I was the only one shop, fast food takeaway, other than Indian takeaway. That's my practical experience. I understand the Broadway is a place where it's Heath is for business, but if we are planning to build the shops downstairs and flats upstairs for residents, we have to balance it, that's my personal opinion, not to extend so much at this time. I don't think Heath has this, in opening a longer at the weekend as such. I would think, we could have been, 1:15 the latest, because if it's closed at 1:45, that means if somebody walks into as a customer, he's still inside there. The staff have to, serve that customer. It goes over 2 o'clock. Then they have to clear it. After that, we got the neighbors. They're just basically upstairs, surrounding. So that is not, I think it's not the time to give at this time of Heath. That would be my opinion. I would accept, to give 1:15, 1:30. To give that period of the time so the staff can clear it, make it, and then they can close it on.
I think there would be marginalised times wherever you fix it. If you fix it at 11 o'clock, 11:30, there's still going to be time for clearing up, time for late customers and so on.
Yeah, but my point was, if they're open till 1:45, that means serving time. So they can serve 1:45. Yeah?
I understand the point, yeah. Certainly. Is that all, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you.
Next is Councillor Henwood.
I have a query on the comments made by Town Council Observations 6.1. They're talking about opening times should remain as currently advertised, 1600 in the morning. I thought this place was open at 9 o'clock in the morning. Have I got this wrong or what? Do you all see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
6.1.
I assume that's their advertised opening times and they're actually opening longer.
But, whatever, Chairman, can you sort of sort that out for me? Because obviously, 1600 is quite different from 0900 in the morning.
Well, I don't know the answer to the question. I don't know if you do, Andy.
Mr. Clark?
I think what the town council are looking at is the actual hours the business actually keeps at the moment, and they choose not to open at 9 o'clock in the morning. Probably there's very little demand for their products at that time of morning. However, the planning condition, as imposed, does allow that opening. So we've got to clear, we're determining the planning application in front of us, which says the 1:45 a.m. opening. We're not considering how they exactly operate at the moment. They don't actually, to be honest, make full use of the 1:45 a.m. Although they don't open stock currently to that time at the moment. So as with all planning applications, we're looking at this prospectively. Whilst it's helpful, shall we say, that there is some evidence of how they've been operating. We've got to look at that, take that out of the equation, and say, well, what are we actually considering here in the applications for the hours between 9 and 1:45 a.m.
So Chairman, we're considering between 9 and 1:45, and yet we're saying here that this evidence that the town council is presenting is incorrect. So I think this is a bit of a fallacy in what, you know, I mean, 9 o'clock. Okay, so there seems to be inconsistencies. But
Well, I think there
wanted
is.
to.
I think there is. I think what the town council is saying is that opening times should remain as currently advertised.
Yeah.
So the business is currently advertising that they're open Sunday to Thursday from 4 p.m. through to midnight, and on Fridays and Saturdays from 2 p.m. until 1:30.
Yes.
That's what they're advertising.
Okay, so that's dubious. Anyway, I understand that, but the issue more important, Chairman, is I'm looking at the Sussex Police. And I'm saying certainly just above that, the paragraph just above that says that the police, they're very concerned about the impact on the amenities of the community. They're saying that the evidence obtained previously over the 10 years might not now be relevant to present times. And they recommend that a reassessment of the situation should be considered. And this would be a reassessment of the present opening times on the community, residential community. So I would definitely support that and would certainly suggest if we approve this, that becomes a condition, if it's not already listed in our condition. And can I also advise the gentleman who spoke, I've forgotten his name, that if this becomes quite a nuisance, you go to licensing committee under the public nuisance. All right? And they can look at the license. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Henwood. I think it's right also to point out that the police have got no objection to the proposed application as submitted.
Chairman, can I also come back? I beg your pardon. I also would very much support Councillor Bash's idea that you stop at 1:45, it means you go on and on. So I would suggest we not agree to 1:45. Thank you. Sorry, Chairman. Thank you.
Sorry, would you like to make a comment? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. I note the proposal from Councillor Basher and potentially Councillor Henwood regarding an earlier time. We have to consider the application in front of us. It's not the power of the committee to make up their own or choose their own hours. So the 1:45 is what we've got to consider. Just noting the reassessment of the situation, as stated by such police, that I suppose that's what this planning application now seeks to do, is to make that reassessment, and they haven't had the reports, the evidence of behaviour and the complaints to justify an objection. Looking back at the 2014 permission, that was granted on a temporary basis, potentially, not realistically, to provide a trial period. And at that point, they should have reapplied in 2015 to make it permanent, and we would consider that application at the time. Realistically, what we've got here is a 9-year trial period, but the evidence does not show that causes significant harm to amenity. I'll leave it at there. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Cherry would like to speak.
Yes, it's just a small point, but an important point, I think. Given that all food establishments are subject to a lot of regularity being checked for hygiene reasons, environmental, all sorts of things like that, I'm quite confused as to why this was not picked up before. That 9 years this establishment has been opening during hours that they actually did not have permission to do so. And I can't understand why this was not picked up, because it is a very important issue. And is there any, is there any comeuppance for this establishment that they have actually been opening illegally, really, for the last nine years? And why wasn't it picked up by one of the many agencies who must come in and check for other, for compliance. So that is my question.
Yep. Well, I suspect, like most of the councillors around the table, when we read these papers, it came as a surprise to me as much as it did to, I'm sure, everybody else. It is a surprise. Perhaps it's a reflection that there wasn't any issues or problems in the area, that, at least that were reported. But perhaps, I don't know whether Andrew has a comment on that.
I can only comment from a planning point of view. I'm not aware of or have knowledge of the other regimes which may have visited the premises. You say, like food safety, obviously they have a remit relating to their particular department. All I can say from a planning investigations point of view, no complaints have been received during that period of time. I think there's many thousands of premises across the district which have hours of operation. The council hasn't got the resources to monitor them all. If we'd received a complaint, then that would have been investigated and potentially an application would have been heard earlier. I would just reiterate, we've got to look at the application as a prospective application. That they have been operating in breach is not a reason to refuse a planning application. Whilst they've been operating unauthorised hours, there is no sanction or penalty which can be applied for that period of time. So I'll just reiterate, members would just take it on the basis that this has been determined like all other applications, but taking into account the evidence really that we've which has been collated over the past sort of 9 years.
But perhaps, consider, this is just a learning point really, isn't it, for future applications, that this needs to be looked at and picked up through whatever agency, happens to be at the food establishment.
I agree, Councillor Cherry. I'm sure that will be taken on board.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Councillor Swetman.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, as Andy alluded to, we keep trying to change things when we're looking at applications. You can't do it. We've got to look at what is in front of us and make a decision on that. I mean, I don't know how many times I've said that as when I was previous chair or even as vice chair. That's one thing. The other point is the town council have got no objections. There's no big complaints, real complaints from the police in the last 9 years. And at the end of the day, businesses are struggling on our high street and we need to do everything that we can do to support them. That's what the government has done in the COVID and, situation, and we should continue to carry on doing that from this council perspective. I just want to ask a question through the chair to Andy, if I can. Just to allay any fears, is it possible to do like another check and keep an eye on this for another year? I think we've done it before, or is that not possible? Just to allay residents' fears that, like the gentleman speaker was saying earlier, that I know there's apparently not been much problems recently, but didn't know whether that was something you could do.
Andrew?
Sorry, to clarify, Vice Chair, are we talking about another temporary permission or monitoring of the...
Just a monitoring, just a monitoring of the situation for periods of time. I think we've done it before, haven't we, in certain circumstances.
The council can certainly undertake monitoring and ensure that there is no breach of planning control were this planning permission to be granted. But that would be, from the purpose of the planning point of view, just the hours of use. Obviously, our environmental protection officers have a different remit and the licensing officers have a different remit relating to public nuisance and crime and disorder. And we can certainly potentially highlight that to those departments to look at it. In terms of granting another temporary permission, again, I'd reiterate, we're looking at the application in front of us, that the applicants have applied for a permanent variation of their opening hours, and I think it's upon the committee to sort of assess that need. We've had 9 years of this, I appreciate, but lately the council is considering these hours, but it probably I don't see the benefit in sort of kicking the can down the road another 12 months, to be honest.
Chairman, if I just say, yeah, I wasn't exactly asking for that because I was just concerned that in a way to monitor it in some way, but obviously our environmental officers, if you highlight that to them, or, you know, we could monitor it in that way. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sweatman. Next on my list is Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I have the same. Well, I'm looking at the again the Town Council observations, and they asked for opening time should remain as currently advertised on the property entrance, Sunday to Thursday, 1600 till midnight, and Friday and Saturday, 1400 to 01:30. So that raises a few issues. What's on the? We've already been told by Andy Clark that it doesn't really matter the opening time because that's proposed at 0900. But in fact, what's on the door is not what I went and had a look today, and what's on the door I think is, I don't know, it was. I looked at 1 o'clock and it wasn't open, but it appeared that it could be open according to what was on the door. Anyway, it's all by the by, but I think there's a lot of. I agree with Councillor Bashar. I think pushing it to 1:45 is just a little bit is too far. So, on balance, I'm confused by this, and I'm inclined to to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Next, Councillor de Bell.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right? I think Councillor Sweat makes a very good point that these people, as we've heard, are trying to make a success of their business, and they're trying to provide a service. The problem is, as we've heard, that this has led to some detritus outside the store. But I think the trouble is that this is a current age malaise. Wherever you go, certainly in East Grinstead, if there's people selling things late in the evening, foodstuffs, it's not the fault of the people inside. It's what the kids get up to outside, causing a ruckus. But it's just possible that by extending the time so that there's not such a crush to get food before they close, it might actually make it better. But what I would suggest is the police they seem quite lethargic about this. I would suggest that that we probably do allow this to go ahead, but that we ask for the enforcement officers to keep a close look on it this time and see what's going on. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor de Bell. And Councillor Basher again.
Yeah, what Councillor Sweatman said is total respect, high respect about the small businesses have to be done. But again, at the same time, we cannot forget the neighbours at this time of the night, I mean in the morning. It's a Friday night, Saturday night. And basically what I'm trying to say is this, we're not 2 miles away from the city. City is different perspective. We in Heaviside, we don't want to make sure that we invite neighbours within lovely flats near the station, and then therefore we cannot do this, complaining, the neighbours are going to complain. I mean, there are a few complaints already that we know of. So my point will be to stick to the present. I mean, we know we don't know what's happening, why we didn't get to this 9 years. I mean, it's another story. But at present, my opinion will be, I've been voting for this until 1:45. I understand the business have to be run, yes. As I say, I respect that, but we've got to have a look at the neighbours as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Basher. I think the point has been made. There's an application before us in specific terms which we have to consider. And it's a question of whether you can't amend it you accept it or you reject it. And we've considered it. There's been speeches in favour and against, and comments on amendments, and sensible comments, I think, about sanctions, or not sanctions necessarily, but monitoring what's going on. Can I seek a proposer and a seconder for the application? Councillor Sweatman, did you want to make?
Just, that's all right.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's only a very quick one. Just to note, obviously, if this application were to be refused, then the business would have to revert back to their current lawful operating hours of 11:30 on a Friday and Saturday. It's not an in-between point. And noting that the council has granted planning permissions in the last couple of years for later opening, as I say, to 1:30 on another premises, and we have late night establishments opening later, it would put them considerably out of sync with those. I appreciate it's a late start, 1:45, but yeah, just to sort of bring that to members' attention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. So we have a proposer. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hitchcock, thank you. And this is with the conditions that have been suggested for about doors being open and about deliveries. Good. Can we go to the vote then now, please, ladies and gentlemen? We have one more person to vote. Yes, it's worked. So the application is passed by a vote of 7 in favour, 2 against and 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. You're doing this one, Steve?
Yeah, very quick.
Item 8 on the agenda relates to some fascia signs, some 6 fascia signs, a projection sign and 8 vinyl signs at the Tesco Express Unit D in the Orchards in Haywards Heath. This issue is before the committee because it relates to property owned by the District Council. As I understand it, it's standard signs that are simply being replaced. So, without being certain, I think this should be fairly straightforward.
Move as recommended, Chairman, then. If no one's...
Yeah. Thank you. Do we need to vote on this, or are we all... Is it unanimous? We ought to vote. We ought to vote, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. 2 more to vote. Yes, that's all 11, so this application is carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is in relation to Slugham Place, Slugham Manor, Slugham Place. And I'm sure you will recall that this...
Steve.
Oh, is Steve not here? Sorry.
Not here.
Forgive me, I'll hold on.
There he is.
So we have item 9 on the agenda, which I'm sure we will all recall from the last meeting when we decided to defer for further consultation with the applicant in relation to the affordable housing contribution, which we had a number of reports upon. Perhaps you would care to outline the situation, Steve, and the latest developments.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to quickly go through the application again. Start with the update sheet. There's been a further letter received from Slough Parish Council that I think has been sent to all members, so I won't go through that in great detail, but it's briefly summarised in the update sheet. So, in terms of the application, just to run through it again, the application seeks to modify Section 106 legal agreement attached to the planning permission at Slough Manor. That application was reported to committee last month, and members resolved to defer the item so officers could go back to the applicants to see if there was scope to secure some contribution towards affordable housing and to consider possible review mechanisms. As I set out in the application, the applicants have stated that because of increasing build costs, it's no longer viable to provide the originally specified affordable housing contributions. Accordingly, the applicants requested that those were removed from the legal agreement, and they did also request officers to review the other infrastructure payments associated with the scheme. So just to refresh members about the site, this is the application site here, outlined in red. Details of that are set out in section 9 of the report, but the site is outside the settlement of Slougham village. It's in the countryside and also the high-wheeled AONB. Essentially, you had the manor house at the frontage of the site, and then more modern office buildings to the rear, to the south, that were used last by Sussex Police as a training centre. Planning history, that's set out in the committee report in section 8, but we had a hybrid planning application to convert the manor house to 9 apartments, to construct 15 dwellings, and the conversion of this building here, Riders, back into a dwelling house. There was a subsequent reserved matters approval for the proposal and a further revision in terms of the internal road layout. So this is the site as approved. So as I say, the manor house has been converted. Buildings to the rear, the office building is all demolished. These 8 houses have been constructed. Riders converted back into a dwelling. This part of the site is all cleared with no dwellings, as is this part of the site, and that flat over a garage hasn't been constructed either. And that's just some photos of the site it is now. So those are the houses that face the central open space area. That's a view from the other side, and that's just a view of the manor house. So in terms of the legal framework, again, just to refresh members' memories, that's set out in section 11 of the report. And essentially where a planning obligation predates April 2010 or is over 5 years old, an application can be made to the council to change the obligation where it no longer serves a useful purpose or will continue to serve a purpose in a modified way. So the assessment of the application set out in section 7 of the committee report, as last meeting, with the view that the application or the obligation still serves a useful planning purpose, as infrastructure payments are required to mitigate the impact of the development, and there's a continuing need for affordable housing in the district. As we said at last month, the next question that arises relates to the viability. You'll see in the report the summary of the applicant's submissions in para 1215. As I said last month, all of that's been assessed by the council's viability consultants, and their conclusions are set out in paragraph 1216. And given the views of our external consultants, it was considered that
it had been demonstrated that it wasn't viable to provide the affordable housing contribution. The application was deferred. We have gone back to the applicants, and you'll see their response is set out in paragraph 12.18 of the report. They're not willing to consider a review mechanism, and you'll see they have offered a payment of £25,000 towards affordable housing. And as before, it's only the affordable housing payment that we're looking at. All the other infrastructure payments would still be required. So that essentially is the updated position. So the recommendation is, as set out in the report, to accept the modification of the legal agreement in respect of the affordable housing. That's it, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Steve. This all sounds rather galling, but it seems we're in a situation where we have had expert assessment, and the expert assessment is something that we have to rely on. And as a consequence of that, we either accept this or we reject it. If we reject it, what's the situation?
Yeah, if the application to amend this is refused, there is a right of appeal to the Secretary of State, Planning Inspector. So that is an option that the applicants would have, and as you've seen from the representation or their last comment, I think we can expect that is what they would seek to do.
And if we found ourselves in that situation where the committee decided to reject this application, we went to the Secretary of State or the Planning Inspector, we would have a hearing, presumably, where we would have to argue the case.
Yeah, it could,
on the basis of the evidence that we have, which isn't terribly favourable, to us.
Yeah, in terms of supporting a case, I think we would have to look to other viability consultants and see if there was another view on this, given the fact that the consultants that we have appointed have come back with the views that they have. So that could be difficult to do.
And we'd have to disclose the existing special experts report.
It's all, everything is a matter of public knowledge, public record. So yes, that would all be available for anyone to see at any hearing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, any observations, comments or thoughts? Councillor Hitchcock.
This is addressed to Stephen. What would be the situation if we all abstained?
I think that's probably more of a question for the council solicitor. Bit of a hospital part.
Chair, the situation is if the committee abstained, then the applicant would appeal for non-determination because you're not determining the application. So the application does need to be determined today.
Fine, thank you. It was just a thought.
Thank you, Councillor Hitchcock. Councillor Kenny next.
Yeah, and thanks, Steve, for your answers to my written questions. I've got a very specific, quick question. You said, more or less correctly, well, nearly accurately correct, you said that the applicant is not willing to implement a review mechanism. I think, I'm not sure, what I think you might mean by that is the formal kind of review mechanism that we'd normally expect to see today when applicants are in danger. But could you expand on that? You know, and if they are unwilling to see what the facts of a review mechanism would bring to light, I wonder why that is. I mean, could you make a comment on what do you mean by that?
Yeah, sorry, if it wasn't clear. What the applicants want the planning obligation to be amended as they've applied for to remove the affordable housing contribution, and they're not prepared to ask for a review mechanism to be put into the legal agreement, so that they don't want to have that added into the legal agreement. As to the reasons why they don't want to do that, yeah, I can't speculate. I mean, I can't speak on their behalf. All I would say is that in terms of a review mechanism, because we're only looking at the construction of 6 more dwellings, in theory that might not take a great deal of time, so there might not be any material difference anyway, so it might not result in more revenue being generated than has been anticipated. Review mechanisms are normally tend to make a difference if you've got a project that's much bigger and built out over a longer period of time, where circumstances might change from the start to the end period. As I say, I can't speculate as to why they don't want to insert a review mechanism into the legal agreement.
But just so that I understand correctly, if we were to say, we'll approve a change to the legal agreement that takes out the existing clause, provided what you put in is what is now a standard Mid-Sussex District Council viability review clause that would review the development from the start. And I don't know, that may be a rerun of some of the things that we've done, or it may be a new exercise. Could you speak to that? Because, for example, my analysis of this is that I think, having looked at all the documents, I think there is uncertainty as to how much it cost to build out phases 1 and 2. I think that the documents include assumptions about costs in lieu of the applicant providing accurate information about what the costs were. And although we have accurate information about the revenues that were earned in phases 1 and 2, the question of what revenues may be earned from phase 3 are still an open question. So I don't think we have a sort of a clear basis at the moment. And our Mid-Sussex District standard is the kind of review clause that is normally built in. It's not an unreasonable response of ours to say, okay, we'll take out the flat figure and we will put our store by, and our defence of our affordable housing and other infrastructure commitments by this current standard review mechanism. And I think that would be a pretty darn good offer.
You lost me, I'm sorry, mate.
All right.
Yeah, in terms of, to answer the question, the committee have to determine the application that's been submitted to us, which is to remove the affordable housing contribution, because it's the applicants who've made that request, and that's what we have to determine. And it's essentially a binary choice. We either agree to their request to amend the legal agreement in this way, or we don't. We can't add things to it in terms of a review mechanism. If members wanted that to be progressed, then this application would have to be refused, and then it would be open to the applicants to potentially appeal, maybe come back to us with something else. That would be their choice, but it's a binary decision. We have to make a decision on what the applicants have applied for.
Okay, if I could come back one more time then, and then I'll let colleagues talk. It seems to me that throughout this process that Dixon, our viability consultants, have tried to do a very professional job, but I find it lamentable that there are still gaps and there are still assumptions in the documents. And I find other aspects of the way that the applicant has approached this matter, like waiting until they had built out all the a significant number of homes as well before they then raised issues of viability. I think that's really not very constructive on their part at all, and I'm very tempted about the idea of, and this may have weight with any appeal that might follow, if we were to refuse the straightforward request to simply remove it, but to offer to the client and to make that a clear part of our decision, an implementation of our standard review mechanism, where we will uncover what it has actually cost, what has actually been earned, and what is likely to be the case for phase 2. It strikes me that that's a good position. So I'll leave it at that for now and let others contribute.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Councillor de Bell.
Thank you very much indeed. I think Councillor Kenny makes a very good point. There's a couple of questions I'd have. How often have we used this developer before? Has anything like this ever come up with this developer before? Because basically what they're doing is reneging on an agreement with us. And is there any way that we can call them to account by saying, you can forget it in the future if this is going to be the way that you go about things? But on top of all of that, I would say that we go back and say no, because the number of people that have come through and have made representations online to say, don't let them get away with this. It's not what we're there for, is it? We decide on a planning permission. Steve, I'll let you come back, mate.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I know Martin Homes have done other developments in the district, but in terms of answering the actual question, I think I can't answer it in that it's not material to the application before us.
Yeah.
We can only look at what is proposed here, supporting information that's come for this application, the assessment of all that information. So anything else,
of course,
on other sites wouldn't be relevant and wouldn't be something that should be taken into account by the committee.
Thank you.
Councillor Hitchcock.
Thank you, Chair. Two things, please. The first one is that, having read through the documents provided by our consultants, I think they missed a real trick in not making an issue of not knowing what the exact amounts were. Because not knowing what the exact amounts were made them take assumptions what they shouldn't have had to take. And they've come to an agreement on unknown figures. And I think they've missed a trick there, and they should have given you a report which said, we're not happy with this information and you shouldn't use it. That's my first viewpoint. The second one I've forgotten about. Yes, I know what it was. It would be very, very difficult for me to support this because a £25,000 offer against a £625,000 number in the 106 agreement is such a paltry number as to be slightly insulting. And I'm not going to vote for this.
Councillor Casella, next. Thank you.
Personally, I found the builder's reply to in the last bit of, he came back with after our considerations last time, to be a touch condescending and possibly quite a little bit threatening as well. Interest rates came down today. They're likely to go down again to another couple of times before these places are built out. Both the Halifax and nationwide indices are showing house prices are going up. And I can't help thinking that these people are going to go laughing all the way to the bank when these things are built. Personally, I'd be going back to them and saying, right, 25 grand you're taking the mick, make it 300 and we'll call it quits. But that's horse trading, that's what I'd do personally, yeah.
Councillor Sweatman wants to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I understand the committee's views on this viability. However, I think we're entering dangerous ground here if we refuse this application. If you look at the report, even our own independent viability assessors, I'll read it out on 2.9. Given the findings of the local planning authority's independent viability consultants, it is considered that it has now been demonstrated that the scheme is no longer viable to provide the affordable housing contribution that is set out in the planning obligation. I possibly don't like it and don't think anyone around this table likes it, but we've not got a choice. If this goes, they will take it to appeal, and the inspector, I'm sure, will turn around and say that this committee has been unreasonable and possibly awarded costs. Is that right, Steve? Is my assumption on that possibly right?
In any appeal situation, the council has to put up a proper defence of the decision that it's made. And if an inspector thinks that you've acted so unreasonably that you've caused the appellant to incur unnecessary and wasted expenditure, i.e. the decision was so poor that it shouldn't have been refused and come to an appeal in the first place, then you can have costs awarded against you. So that's the overarching framework.
If I might come back, Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, all of us sitting around this table are not experts, by far. We pay our independent assessors to do the work they're paid to do. And not how much they cost, but I shouldn't imagine they're very cheap. And so they have come to this conclusion. From an inspector's point of view, it's a bit like a highways issue. The inspector will turn around and say, well, why have you refused it on highways ground? They're the competent authority. Really haven't got much choice in that. There's a similar sort of situation. The inspector will turn around and say, look, you're experts, you're planning viability consultant experts. They're experts, not us. So I can't see how you can really go against that expert advice. I know we don't like it, but I think we need to approve this before we end up with possibly of costs against us. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sweatman. Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, in all of these things, we can put colour on the way that we talk about them. I equally heard that at an appeal, the council would need to be seen to have, acted in a high-handed manner or not given enough due diligence. Well, I think it's fairly clear that we are considering this matter very, very carefully after 2 meetings. I'm not forgetting the important objections that have been made from local bodies like the Southern Parish Council in particular, whose evidence was very clear and very direct. And Councillor Sweatman, what you haven't included in your thing is the many rounds of debate between Dixon Searle and the applicant, and the way in which, as Councillor Hitchcock has pointed out, and which I have also mentioned, our consultants were, through a series of assumptions and other things, have put in front of us conclusions which are not solidly rooted in facts. Now, for us to have concerns about that is perfectly reasonable. In fact, I think it would be clear to any inspector that we are doing our best to serve the important needs of our residents for infrastructure and for social housing. And it's important for us to defend that. And this, remember, is a game which is not yet over. Those houses have yet to be built out. The final amount of profit has yet to be uncovered and determined. And I think that if we, in rejecting this offer, make it clear that what we would like to see is a full review, as I said earlier, under our current rules for assessing viability, an open book account. If we put that on the table, I think our reputation will be clear. I don't think that we will have any costs. That's my opinion about it.
Well, it seems to me that the reports that we've received are flawed in some ways and could be very badly flawed because of the assumptions that have been made and the fact that the project is not by any means finished. So I'm with you, I think, on that. Sorry, Councillor Henwood.
Well, the only evidence we have has been provided by our independent assessor. So I'm sorry, I feel like we cannot go against. There would be no evidence to support if it went to an inspector. Why are we doing this? Because we're unhappy, because they're not supplying. And Slough Parish Council have sent us lots and lots of emails to say they need the money. I'm sorry, I propose that we accept the recommendation, Chairman.
Okay, that's very clear. Thank you, Councillor Henwood. Observations, Steve?
Yeah, I take the point that a number of members have made about some of the concerns DSP have said in their overall response about how information's been presented, how things have been difficult to reconcile, etc. If members are not satisfied still with the information that has come from the applicants in terms of the costs of the build, then there is an option, exceptionally, because it's not something we recommend, for a further deferral. If that was the concern of members, just to get more information from the applicants. Obviously, there's no guarantee that we will get further information that will satisfy members, or that it will make any difference to the overall situation. But that is a potential option if that is the particular concern, that it's still the information from the applicants, that there's gaps or issues about what's been presented. So there is that option, and we'll see what comes back from the applicants, if members want to go down that route.
Sounds good. It shows we've done the job.
Councillor Kenny?
Yeah, in fact, I'd be reluctant to go, because I think that the applicant will have other issues in their continued stance to expunge any infrastructure contributions whatsoever from their development. So they will argue about overall profitability levels, which they have done, because Dixon Searle made an earlier recommendation of what it seemed to me to be a perfectly acceptable level of GDV for this, which they rejected. So I think that if were we to do that, we will be guaranteeing that we'll be back here spending more of our time at a further meeting. I think that it seems to me, when I look at the pattern of behaviours and communications from the applicant, that their stance is clear, and I would like to see that tested in a proper understanding of the actual situation. So if that has to be via an appeal, then let's have it by an appeal. An appeal surely must go further than saying, did your experts or did they not say X? I mean, we're tired of hearing this, Councillor Sweatman, at meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. The expert has said X, there's nothing you can do about it. Well, in this case, we've read quite a lot about it. We've read quite a lot of the direct evidence ourselves. Anyway, enough.
Anything else? Steve, did you want to come back on that?
Well, ultimately, the recommendation is before committee, and that's what's before you. That's the evidence that we have from our advisors. The other alternatives are, as I've said, refusal or a deferral to try and seek further information, clarity from the applicants that might overcome some of the concerns of members. But I don't think I can say.
But, I mean, to some extent, we've already done that, but isn't the issue really part of the basis upon which the experts made their analyses? And the fact that they made assumptions or didn't consider information, and that we have concerns about that and the basis of the expert advice that we've been given.
Yeah, well, I think that's what members have identified, isn't it? That the information from the applicants, as assessed by DSP, members have concerns about the sort of veracity, if you like, of the information that's come from the applicants. So, you know, if I've understood that correctly, we could go back to the applicants. I'm sure they're watching as we speak, and you know they could seek to try and address those concerns. I'm sure there's a time pressure for them because obviously if an appeal is made, it will take many months to be allocated to an inspector and determined. So we may get something back from them swiftly. As I say, those are the options, Jeff.
Okay, oh, sorry, Councillor Cherry would like to speak.
Just a final thought I have is that how can you accurately judge the viability or otherwise of this when you're basing it on figures which are not definite? These are assumptions. And there just seems to be a complete contradiction here. That's my feeling.
So we have to decide first, I think, whether we're prepared to defer this or whether we want to vote on it. Deferred in the way that Steve described, to get more information, possibly, or not. Any thoughts on that, Councillor Sweatman?
Yeah, I think we're just going back to what was before. You know, it's been ping pong. And not being funny, the developers, I feel sorry for the developers in a way, because this has been dragging on for some time, and it will be costing them. You know. Costing us £600,000. No, I'm not saying that's not the point. But this, how long? Correct me if I'm wrong. This has been going on for over a year now, so it's quite some time. So that is unsustainable for a developer from a business point of view. You know, you just keep dragging it on, and we'll be back here next week or the week after. It's discussing exactly the same thing. So I think we need to make a decision, and if this application is refused, be on our own heads. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, I think we need to make a decision on deferment first, and just let's hear a comment on that before we go ahead. Councillor Kenny first, then Councillor Hitchcock.
No, sorry, I don't have a comment. I was just going to reply to Councillor Sweatman.
Well, please do.
Just to say that a significant amount of this development is the applicant's own choice, because he did not want, or they did not want to go ahead and provide a Section 106 contribution. Their choice.
Well, let's speak through the chair. Councillor Hitchcock, Councillor Seller next.
I think we've kicked this around enough. I don't think there's any point in deferring it further because I don't think we're actually going to get a result. So I suggest we go to a vote on the original proposal.
To approve the recommendation.
Sorry, can I just be clear, Councillor Henwood? You're proposing
To accept the recommendation.
to accept the recommendation, okay. And Councillor Hitchcock is seconding that. Okay. Shall we go to a vote then? Just, sorry. Steve has asked me to emphasise. Exactly, we need to be sure exactly what we're voting for. And I think the proposal by councillor Henwood, seconded by councillor Hitchcock, is that we accept the recommendation set out in paragraph 3.1. Okay? So that we will effectively secure the affordable housing contribution of only £25,000.
Chairman, can we clear the vote and start again in that case?
I think we should, yes. Can we do that, please? Are we all clear on exactly what we're voting for?
Accepting the money that they're offering.
Yes. That's the proposal of councillor Henwood, seconded by councillor Hitchcock, set out in paragraph 3.1 of your papers. Page 99. Yes, councillor Singh.
We're supposed to get the 600,000 probably if the full contribution is there.
Yeah.
Right?
That was the initial agreement, yes.
Only £25,000. I mean, wouldn't it be a precedent for future developments as well? Of course it will. And also, another question is, what will be the cost for council if it goes to the appeal? What will the council cost?
Well,
No, I think you need to vote.
We need to vote.
I think we've got past that, councillor Hassan.
I see, all right, okay.
Can we go back to the vote on the proposal to accept the recommendation set out, page 99, paragraph 3.1? Proposed by councillor Henwood, seconded by councillor Hitchcock. Could you please cast your votes? Well, I vote in favour of acceptance.
It doesn't come up on the screen.
Because I've already voted.
I've already voted. You've got the casting vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's approved.
Okay. Approved, yeah. Chairman's casting the vote. Right. Next item is we need to consider whether to exclude the press and public from the meeting following discussions that are going to take place on the grounds that under the Local Government Act, the issues that we'll be discussing can involve likely disclosure of exempt information. So, can we agree? Sorry, councillor Brown.
Are we in the executive session now?
Oh, yeah.
Not yet, no.
So can we agree that? Yeah.
We just have to clear the...
Chairman, sorry, if I may, Chairman, that's the wife, but I don't know whether she still has to go.
Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. The last item on the agenda is questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2, due notice of which should have been given. Well, I've not been given any notice and we don't have any questions. So that's the last item on the agenda. Can I thank you very much indeed for your diligence and your patience?
One chair, sir.